This is the story of a love affair. A love affair of a different kind that began when a young Colorado schoolteacher made a pilgrimage to her adopted home. A partnership that has remained steadfast and faithful for over 75 years. The companions in this love affair? A woman, alias Peppery Polly, and her beau? A place, aptly nicknamed the Grand Canyon State.
I'm Polly Rosenbaum. I'm a native of Iowa. I grew up in Colorado. I came to Arizona to teach. I got a job down in Arizona in a mining camp that paid more money than I could possibly make up in Colorado where I was living. So I came on the train. I thought it was the hottest place I had ever heard of, and the smoke was belching out of the smokestacks at Hayden. And the only thing I could think of was Dante's Inferno.
Love at first sight. While teaching school in Hayden, Polly met her one and only true love of the humankind, Bill Rosie Rosenbaum.
He was working in the mill when I knew him, but he was a pharmacist by profession. He got into politics through the American Legion. He was a hard worker, and he'd worked hard in the American Legion. And some of the fellows came over from Globe one day and said to him, "Rosie, why don't you run for the legislature?" "Oh," he said, "I don't know too much about politics."
Rosie was eventually persuaded and began a distinguished 20-year career as an Arizona legislator.
He was a majority floor leader for years. He, of course, was very much interested in the working man. He was interested in what was good for Arizona, particularly in health problems, being a pharmacist. He was never one to brag about his accomplishments much, but he was a very dynamic figure in Arizona history.
While Rosie was off in Phoenix, Polly remained an educator in Hayden until the mine closed down and she was relieved of her teaching duties. Her shorthand experience landed Polly a job as a stenographer for the Arizona Appropriations Committee.
I went home, packed my bags, and came to Phoenix on Monday morning. And I never worked harder in my life. I had studied politics and legislative work in school, but it's nothing like the real thing. I got here. I came out at 8 that morning, and there was another woman working. So we took verbatim notes of the actions that went on in the committee that day, stayed at night and transcribed them. So we got through and had them on the men's desks the next morning.
This in the days before transcription machines and word processors. Upon her arrival in Phoenix, Polly renewed her acquaintance with Rosie, and wedding bells soon followed. The newlyweds settled into the Adams Hotel, home of Arizona's other rural legislators. It would be at the Adams where Polly would receive a first-hand education on Arizona politics.
It was quite a place. They all say that's where the laws were made. They weren't really made there, but I'll tell you, they were discussed there. The third floor was usually taken over by the legislature, and we had the same room. The wives came with the husbands in those days. And I usually stayed because I always brought a typewriter, and I was there to write up memos and do things if they needed.
Polly took more than just a passing interest in lawmaking, frequently presenting Rosie with the female perspective of certain issues.
If he was very busy, I would read the newspapers and clip what I knew he should read. And we always discussed the things. Oftentimes, we would argue, I mean in a nice tone of argument. And I'd say, but listen, you ought to hear the woman's viewpoint on that. There is a difference, you know. And he often said, yes, I had never thought of that angle.
In 1949, Polly's mentor and soulmate, Rosie, passed away unexpectedly after they returned home to the Adams following just the second day of that legislative session. Suddenly widowed and uncertain what the future held for her, Polly would be thrust into a new career and lifestyle.
In those days, they appointed the wife quite often. The Board of Supervisors in the county you were from would appoint a person to take their place. And I had worked with Rosie so much and so long, and they wanted to know if I wanted the appointment, and I said, yes, I do. So that was the way that I was appointed. He was buried on a Wednesday. I came out the next Monday morning and sat in his chair in this building here and carried on from there.
Still mourning her loss, Polly decided the best way to honor Rosie's memory would be to complete his unfinished business. But she suddenly found herself a woman in a man's world. To fulfill one of Rosie's missions, a law introducing a traffic code for Arizona, Polly was provided with a challenging opportunity to assert herself and demonstrate that she belonged.
One man came to me and he said, and he came over and he said, now I'll take the traffic code and handle it for you. And I said, no, I'm perfectly able of doing it. And he really got very upset. And I wouldn't give it up. And words ensued. And I can remember backing up against the wall. And he said, well, why won't you let me have it? And in those days, I wasn't as smart as I am now. And I blurted out, because nobody trusts you. Your word's no good. Well, if I had been a man, he would have knocked me down. And I remember in this room in here, backing up against the wall, and a gentleman from Yavapai County said to me, I'm staying with a lady. I will go along with what she wishes. Then another one from Santa Cruz County spoke up and he said, I will too. Well, I had won the battle.
The first of many battles Polly would win during her 45-year career in the House of Representatives. Polly served the vast and diversified District 4 and its constituency of everything from ranchers and farmers to mine workers. She championed the health care needs of her rural citizens, crusades Polly was able to observe the effects of firsthand.
And I remember being up in Sholo one day, and somebody came up and he said, oh, I want to meet you. You saved my life. And I said, if you don't know me, how could I have saved your life? And he said, well, I know because you were one that voted for the dialysis machine, which it goes to the different rural parts of the state. And I thought after it, how little we know sometimes what we're voting about, to know the far-reaching effects of it.
Polly was also an impassioned education advocate, a trait she attributes to her days as a school teacher.
Libraries to me are one of the most important things ever. The library is a place where you can go no matter how poor you are, how little you have, and there's a wealth of material and books are there. And I said if I never did anything else, I'd like to see every child in the state of Arizona have access to a free public library. And we build prisons instead of libraries. Once a school teacher, always a school teacher.
Polly also proposed an idea that served two purposes for Arizona. She initiated the University Student Page Program, which provided college students with first-hand legislative experience and supplied the state with highly motivated, low-salaried employees. This economic and educational practice is still utilized today. Her penchant for guarding state funds and fighting the abuses of taxpayers' money led to Polly being given a memorable nickname.
Yes, Virgil wrote the story and called me Peppery Polly because I was chairman of administration and I was really clamping down on money being spent for things we didn't need. So I don't know where the peppery came from, but it came.
In 1994, after 45 years of legislative accomplishments and serving longer than any of her female counterparts, Polly took on another historical assignment, preserving the rich heritage of our state. She now dedicates her time to protecting celebrated Arizona landmarks and establishing historical museums and literature. And at 97 years old, what are Polly's plans for the future?
Well, I think work. And there's a joy in accomplishing something. When you accomplish something, I think you really feel that you've contributed something for further generations. And I like accomplishing things.
And no one has accomplished more for the state of Arizona than the incomparable and ageless First Lady of the Arizona Legislature. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the protector of the heritage of our state, Historymaker Honoree Polly Rosenbaum.